Hello. Have you ever wanted to play a tower defense game, but you're just tired of monkeys throwing darts at balloons? Have you ever wanted something more 3D? Something more, action-y? Something orcish? Well, I have the game for you. Welcome to Orcs Must Die, the third. Today, we'll be diving headfirst into the endless mode. Specifically, we are going to the Great Room, which to be honest is not all that great. Our goal here is to last as long as we can. However, there's a catch. I'll be doing this on my own. There have been some duos who have made it through 60 different waves. So, how many can one lonely boy go through? Let's find out. In this game, you have 10 slots to put in weapons, trinkets, and traps. So, you have to plan out your strategy fairly well ahead of time. So, I did a bit of experimenting, and in the end, this is what I decided on going for. First, I needed a good weapon. For the majority of the game, I've used the magic longbow. It does little in the way of normal damage, but it has great headshots. However, I opted to leave the bow aside and replace it with a blunderbuss. Not only does it do a decent amount of damage, but also goes. Plus, I can launch a grenade that can do this.
Nice.
Next are the trinkets. These magical apparatuses can do special things, like healing or setting traps.
Or calling upon a storm to strike your opponents with lightning.
You know, magical stuff. I chose 2 trinkets, the first being the Empty Rift. When activated, any enemy who happens to go through the rift, the thing you're protecting, I kind of forgot to mention that, will not reduce your rift points. Considering I wanted to last as long as I can, this was a no-brainer. The second trinket was a Ring of Storms. I chose this because... Need I say more? Well, yes I do, because the Ring of Storms caused the rift to shoot lightning. Lastly, I needed traps. These would either make or break my run since they will do the most damage. This is where strategy will come into play. Enemies will come through these 2 entry points, and they will try to go to the rift here. Thought number 1, I could load up both sides with traps that will kill a decent amount of orcs. However, since I have a limited amount of currency to spend on making traps, the center area where both sides of enemies would eventually join will become vulnerable. If you can't stop them here, they'll just go straight into the rift. Thought number 2, I can make this area into a choke point by using barricades to force the orcs into a labyrinth of death. I went with option number 2. That means I need barricades. These block the path of orcs so that they have to go elsewhere. However, if you make it where orcs are completely blocked off, they will start destroying barricades. Now, I can make the barricades take up 2 tiles or 1 tile. I can't have both, unfortunately. The double-tiled one is the most cost-effective. However, this makes it to where I can't build a large labyrinth. 1-tile barricade it is. Next, a no-brainer trap is a tar pit. These will just slow enemies down. They have a special upgrade to keep enemies slowed when they are off the tile, or make enemies more vulnerable to fire damage. I chose the first, but keep the second in mind, as it is a surprise tool that'll help us later. Last in our utility traps is this box thing. It literally makes orcs chase after butterflies. This will inevitably make some enemies go backwards through the labyrinth. The special upgrade I chose for this will make them more distracted. That's enough with measly utility traps. Now it's time to do a little damage. You see this pit of death? Would it be nice if I could use it to my advantage? Well, again, these are flip traps. Step on one, and an orc will go flying. If you get through that, you'll have to step on this doohickey over here. This is an acid geyser that spews acid. If an orc dies to acid damage, they'll just straight up melt. Did I mention that this was a T-rated game? Anyways, if enemies make it through that, they'll have to face several different traps all at once. This is the dart spitter. When enemies get close enough, this will happen. This is a general AoE attack that will do a little damage to everyone. However, its unique upgrade makes the dart spitter do ice damage, which can of course freeze enemies. Last but definitely not least is the saw blade launcher. This little contraption will spit out these highly dangerous buzzsaws that bounce. If these bad boys are aimed at the ceiling, the saws will bounce all the way through this row. Moreover, this unique upgrade will make enemies bleed. Whew, that's it. With all of my traps in place, it's time to see how far this boy can go. The first waves are filled with the easiest enemies of the game. They're so easy in fact I actually don't really need any traps to deal with them. So during this phase I need to rack up enough money to begin my Chamber of Pain. This is added by the fact that I have time in between these waves to properly prepare. However, as soon as wave 6 started... Huh? What was that noise? Ooh. This isn't no hunter. Instead of just charging mindlessly to the rift, these bad boys will go directly for you. To do so, they'll even jump over your well-crafted barricades. Then, this big boy showed up. Get used to them, as they'll be showing up in mass quantities later on. Next wave introduced several more enemies. First, these yellow diamonds. Okay, sometimes they're diamonds, sometimes they're just dots. It really just depends on the enemy sometimes. But regardless, these yellow things are these guys. They charge right to the first barricade they see and go.
The barricade is under attack.
Now, these are orc archers that like to sneak up on you and just spontaneously kill you. For the next wave, I have the idea of putting this flip trap right here to hopefully fit the enemies into the pit. Yeah, that did not work out too well. Then, everything was going well. Until this boy arrived. He's like the no hunter, except he throws explosives at you. Wave 10. This is where the fun begins. Mr. Moneybags. This fellow is quite unique. If you kill him, you get 1,000 of whatever this currency is. However, if he does get into your rift, he will not reduce your rift points. So it's best to kill him when you have the opportunity to. And in the same wave, I saw something horrifying. Apparently, when an ogre charges, sometimes they can send some orcs flying. Luckily I was prepared. From here on out, there are no breaks in between waves, and the waves will follow a certain pattern. Every 5 waves there will be one wave with hunters, one wave with exploding dudes, one wave without any special enemies, one wave with throwable explosives, and a larger wave with Mr. Moneybags. At this point, giving a wave-by-wave narration would be quite pointless and would be very boring for the both of us. So, here are the special events that happened before my inevitable demise. Wave 15. Here, I was finishing my second row of pain when I saw that I could not set up my usual setup for my buzzsaws. This singular torch prevents me from placing 2 launchers down. So, in wave 17, I decided to place 2 launchers here, with the butterfly distraction here. Oh yeah, also on that wave, a barricade was destroyed.
The barricade is down.
And was eventually placed in wave 19. Wave 20. This one ogre was continually being flipped. So I put him out of his misery. Wave 22. The exact same barricade gets blown up
Destroy the barricade.
and gets replaced. At this point, I realized I would eventually fail in 2 separate avenues. First, the barricades are under attack. Due to the large amount of orcs in my room of pain, I cannot destroy exploding dudes before they can get to my barricades. Second, with each passing wave, the orcs were getting faster and had more health. Eventually, I would not be able to do enough damage to kill them. Wave 24. One guy made it past me. I genuinely do not know how someone did, but someone did. Wave 26. I continued to build a 3rd row of pain. Potential mistake number 1. Wave 27. Disaster struck.
The barricade is down.
Uh-oh. In total, 4 separate barricades were destroyed. Now, instead of creating new damaging traps, I had to rush to recover. I had very little funds to recover since I started building that new row. Now comes mistake number 2. I started to rebuild the 1st row of barricades instead of the 2nd. If I remade the 2nd row, all the orcs would have to start going around again, instead of just going through this gap. Starting wave 28, I was in a constant state of panic and trying to survive. Wave 29. I somehow managed to fully repair my barricade situation. However, I made another mistake. In between waves, you can sell your traps and get the money back from those traps. Seeing that this barricade was almost dead, I decided to sell it. Oh no. I started this wave with 24 rift points, and I ended this wave with 15. Wave 32. Oh no.
They've destroyed the barricade.
3 separate barricades were destroyed, and some unseen orc got through somehow. Wave 34. Repairs were completed. Wave 37. Pain. The entire front row, except for this one, was destroyed, and 2 in the second row were destroyed. I was in deep trouble. At the last second, I used my empty rift to avoid having 2 less rift points. Wave 39.
More enemies on the way! They've destroyed the barricade!
Well, there you have it. With this setup, I survived 38 waves. I probably would have survived more if I did not make a few dumb mistakes. Overall, I think it went well. There was just the huge problem of the exploding dudes. I did not deal with them. They exploded my barricades and then it just became all overwhelming. After taking a small break, I decided I wanted to try a different setup. But all of that is coming up in part 2. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hold them back!